Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Happiness Is podcast with me, your host, Bruce Aitchison from Happiness is Egg-Shaped. And today I'm going to do the intro and get straight into it because we should waste no time. This is my hero, your hero, everybody's hero. This is the man who kicked off those fly-on-the-wall documentaries, absolute nonsense. But it wasn't all off the field. He was an unbelievable rugby player who did things that made us all get up off our seat, get up off our settee because we were probably watching from far away and get very, very excited. He's also one of the nicest and most humble men I have ever met in my life. And I am very, very lucky to say that I've worked with this guy quite a few times. And every time I leave better than when I arrived. He is that kind of goodness. So please welcome the British and Irish Lion legend, Mr. John Bentley. Hello, sir.
Bruce, wow, what an intro. I feel so good at the moment.
You are the man. I remember the first time we met and you'd got on a plane, I think, with Scott Hastings to come out to Hong Kong. And I think Scott turned left and you turned right. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, something like that. You know, the privileged.
And since then, we've bumped into each other a few times. And getting to do after dinner speaking, I always feel is a huge honour. But one of the bits of it is I get to listen to people like you. And every time you just have people eating out the palm of your hand. How does that feel?
Bruce, I love it. I love life. I love life first and foremost. I love being centre of attention. I like the sound of my own voice, so after dinner speaking lends itself to me. But I want to be liked by people. I want people to like me. I need to be liked. My wife says to me, John, you've got to deal with this. There are some people who don't like you. What? They don't like you. So anyway, I love life, mate, and I love people. It's been quite challenging over the last 14 months with the current situation with the world that we're in, and you know, I've been deprived of that opportunity to mix with people, but it's coming back now, so I'm quite excited.
Your wife gives you a bit of a hard time for only having one story to tell, doesn't she?
Yeah, she tells me I went on one tour, scored one try, and you got one speech. Get over yourself. Come on.
I love it. It keeps you humble. Now that tour, to a lot of rugby union people, they didn't really know a lot about John Bentley, and then by the end of it, we couldn't get enough.
Wow. Yeah.
It was obviously a special tour, and you know, for me, that was a huge moment. I was 17, 18 years old, 97, Doddy Weir, yourself, Rob Howley, Scott Quinnell, you know, even Jeremy Guscott to a certain extent became quite likeable for a Scotsman. Gregor Townsend was a massive hero of mine. What was it like joining that tour party right at the very beginning?
Do you know what, Bruce? It wasn't on my radar. It really wasn't to tour with the British and Irish Lions. I'd been in rugby league for 9 years. I'd initially played with England back in '88 as a 21-year-old on 2 occasions. And I'd gone to rugby league then. And I had 9 years playing professional rugby league. And then I got a phone call. I'd signed with Newcastle in September '96 with Rob Andrew and Sir John Hall's band of brothers. We had an amazing team in the second division, which got promoted and then won the Premiership first time of asking. Fran Cotton rang me January of '97 and said, Bentos, it's Fran. I went, yeah, I know it's Fran. I'd been with Fran at Sale before turning professional with the rugby league, Fran and Steve Smith. And Fran said, I'm going to come straight to the chase. Are you available to tour with the Lions in the summer? And I wasn't. Technically, I was supposed to be playing professional rugby league. It was a 12-month contract, 8 months with Newcastle, 4 months with Halifax. But I lied and I said yes. He said, well, with all due respect, you're running riot. You're in a great team. We're going to need to get you a run with England A, the second string. And rang me back 3 weeks later and said, England won't touch you. It comes as very little surprise to either of us. But, you know, but what I'm telling you is we're watching you. And do you know the significance of 97 as well, Bruce, which probably need to mention is it was the first time that so McGeechan was invited. He'd been on the tour in '93, which had been a poor tour really in New Zealand, and he was invited to coach the '97 Lions tour, and he said no. And the reason being is in '93 a committee picked the players, and he took players that he didn't want to particularly take to New Zealand who weren't equipped to play for the Lions. He said, the only way I'll consider if I pick my coach and staff, and I also get the opportunity to pick the players, we'll get some selectors and we'll pick the players. And that was groundbreaking. And also the fact that, yeah, it was professional, but there was so much amateur there. And looking back, we've done lots of work just recently, podcasts and the lads of 97 coming together in the build-up to this tour this year. Everybody talks about our tour being the happy tour, and it was. You know, traditionally, you've got a challenge with that group of players, Bruce. They can all play, but you've got 4 countries, 3 of which, the Celts, phonetically spelled so incorrectly, don't particularly like the English, really, if we're honest. And then again, I'm a northern boy. I'm from Yorkshire, and I don't particularly like the English. But we actually decided, we had a really important meeting with a group of players, and we wanted to devise a code of conduct and also recognise how we wanted to be viewed as a group of players. And we agreed for 2 months of our lives to put our differences to one side. And it worked. We became an amazing group of players off the field, which obviously had a great benefit on the field. And do you know, incidentally, I know I'm talking a lot here, but that's what I'm supposed to be doing. But incidentally, we played a style of rugby in 97, Bruce, that we'd never played since. Before, we've never played since. You know, moving the ball away from their strength, which is their forwards, and putting 4 or 5 players behind the ball carrier and playing some rugby. It was amazing.
It was amazing. The whole thing was amazing because it was able to be televised here. There was no time difference, so games happened at kind of suitable times to watch. The Fly on the Wall documentary, I mean, you're probably sick of talking about it, but it never gets old. And I know, I mean, I've watched it so many times and I'll watch it again. I've got absolutely no doubt. But you're the kind of guy that every tour party needs to bring that energy. And you've already said happiness.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting with the film crew because we arrived in Weybridge on the 11th of May 1997. That was the day that my son was 7-year-old. It was his birthday. So I'd had some lunch with him and then I disappeared with Tony Underwood down to Weybridge. 2 little girls, one at 5 and one at 6 months, which was a challenge to leave them, if I'm honest, Bruce, you know, for 2 months. And when we had our first team meeting on the Monday morning, there was a film crew in the corner of the room and they were never introduced. And I didn't realise until later that back in 97, in the build-up to the tour, Geach was told that, and Frank Cotton, the team manager, that there was going to be a film crew going to try to recreate Fly on the Wall. And he said, no, that's not happening. The Alliance, it's not happening. And he was told, basically, he got his own way with picking the players, so he had to deal with the fact that the film crew was coming. And how he chose to deal with them, he ignored them initially. He totally ignored them. And they were never introduced. And do you know what? They were with us throughout the week. They were wearing the kit. And on the Friday night, we all went for a drink together. And do you know the sad part of us all going for a drink together? We only did it on 2 occasions, Bruce. That was the first. And the second was after the 3rd test. Because throughout the tour, the rugby was the priority. There was always somebody preparing for the biggest game of their lives. And the film crew were there. And I said, come on, boys, what are you doing? Why are you here? You've not been introduced. And we won't Fly on the Wall. And I just said, do you know what? You've no chance. There's only a player can get Fly on the Wall, a real Fly on the Wall. And actually, unbeknown to me, they got some portable cameras that they were going to distribute. They were taking away 3. They were going to distribute them to some of the players. And when we arrived in Durban, we went to the gym for the first time. And I'd, if you remember the scene in the gym, and I'd spoken to the conditioner and said, I don't do weights. I'm 30-year-old, I don't do weights. I've never lifted a weight in my life. I'm not doing them. And he went, well, you've got to come to the gym. And I said, well, I'll come to the gym, but I'll just do a bit of, you know, bit on the bike, on the rower and whatever. And I did a knock. I'd got a knock on my bedroom door, and it was the lad who was running the crew. And he said, Bentos, can I come in? He said, yeah, of course you can. He said, I've got something for you. And he pulled out of the bag this snazzy little piece of equipment, which was, wow, I'd never seen anything like it. He said, it's yours, do what you want with it. And I took it to the gym for the first time, if you recall. I spoke to that lovely girl called Lauren who was under step. Lovely. And then there was a girl, her husband must have been very, very fortunate. She was beautiful. And then there was a big truck on the treadmill, and I just said, here's one for the front 5. So it was fun. You know, it was fun. But Bruce, importantly, it also had to be about the rugby. You know, we were given no chance. No chance. And I promise you, when I rocked up in Weybridge in Surrey, I didn't really think we'd get a shot at the series. I thought we might win one test series, really. But actually, by the time we'd boarded the plane and left Weybridge and flew to South Africa, I thought we were in with a chance. I changed my mind.
When you arrived at Weybridge, did you know all the players?
No, I didn't. I knew the Newcastle boys. There were 5 of us: Stimo, Tate, Doddy, Tony. I knew some of the Welsh boys from the Rugby League connection: Scott Quinnell, Scott Gibbs, Alan Bateman, Di Young. The Irish boys are easy. They're really. We're only 4 of them as well. Everybody gets on with the Irish. But the English, I didn't know the English, and I remember asking Tony about some of them, and what about Johnson and what about Delalio, and in particular, I spoke about Guscott. I asked him about Jerry Guscott, and I'd formed a bit of an opinion of Guscott prior to meeting him, which is a mistake, really. But I thought he was a little bit arrogant. He appeared a little bit aloof and arrogant, and he also didn't play in that game when Bath played against Wigan at Rugby League at Main Road, Manchester, and then at Rugby Union in Twickenham, and so I thought he was a bit soft, actually, if I'm honest. And I asked Tony about it, and Tony said, "Well, Bentos, if he respects you, you'll get on very well." And Tony said he will respect you, and I said, "Well, you know me, Tony. If he doesn't, I'll pick a tackle shield in training, I'll let him hold it, and I'll throw my arm straight across the top of it, across the bridge of his nose, and we'll gain some respect." And actually, when he came into the room, I'd gone, and I was attempting to blend Bruce. And we were all meeting up for the first time. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of energy in the room. And I watched Guscott come into the room. What a presence. What an amazing presence. And he was laughing and joking. And we got brought together. And he put his hand out. I put my hand out to shake his hand. He went, Bentos, I've heard a lot about you. Looking forward to spending some time. And I thought, wow, And what certainly throughout that tour, what I did recognise, he wasn't soft. He was an amazing rugby player, and a player that during extreme intensity can still stay up there. When we were in the second test and we were just hanging in there, we were second best at times, well, probably for 60 minutes. He still insisted we needed to push and keep playing. And he's become a great friend, actually. He's become a great friend. And I do talk about him. I'm sure we'll get into it, but there's an occasion when I scored a try that everybody talks about, and I had an opportunity to come on the passenger, and I didn't, and I ended up getting over the line. And he sold to me. He told me, he said I should have passed. But do you know what? On the 28th of June, when that drop goal went, that was his moment. And I always remember stood there thinking, and do you know that was, and I'm jumping way ahead now, but that was an amazing moment in my life, that we'd been given no chance. We were on the field in the second test. 3 minutes remaining, drop goal goes over, 18-15 we leading. Jenks had kept us in that game. And when the final whistle went, it was one of the most frustrating moments of my life, Bruce, because there were so many different places I wanted to be at that one moment in time. There was all the boys on the field who had become amazing friends and colleagues. There was the boys who were integral, who sat in the stand, who were a big part of our success. And then, of course, there was my family and all my friends back home, a long way away. And I wanted to share that moment with everybody. And I just remember stopping and thinking to myself, oh, no, why? Why? Of all the people, why did it have to be Guscott?
Do you know someone as a Scotsman, and I've asked Gregor this, why didn't you take that drop goal?
Yeah, he carried the ball into contact, actually.
I know, what the hell was he doing? He should have sat in the pocket and kicked the goal.
Yeah. Yeah, he was man, really, and he's a great guy. Misinterpreted. People who form an opinion of him, and it's a negative, don't know him. I'm privileged to know him now, and I'm pleased to call him a good friend. And I was wrong about everything I thought about him. He was an amazing rugby and an amazing bloke, actually.
We can't or I can't move on. A mutual friend of ours, and we won't spend too long on it, but Doddy Weir was fabulous on that tour. Obviously, nobody had ever heard of him, Pumalanga, and hasn't heard of it since. But if you were a rugby supporter, you remember it for pretty dark reasons. And Doddy, I know you've been in touch with him very recently. What a man.
Yeah, crazy. Flawless. And flawless as a human being. I would defy anybody to say a bad word about him. He walks into a room and lights the room up, and he's always been fun. I like to use the word fun. But yeah, it was brutal. Obviously, his tour came to an end. I always remember, because I'd used the camera for a couple of weeks, and I'd said, do you know what, to the boys, why don't I give it to somebody else and get a different perspective of the tour? Yeah, everybody's relaxing now. They're comfortable with me with the camera. So I gave it to Doddy. And actually, when he got injured, I went to his room to pick the camera up and to say goodbye to him, actually. And I remember going back to the room, and for that one moment, it's the only occasion throughout the tour, I wanted to go home. I didn't want to be there. It was like, what's it all about, this? And, you know, I laid the pictures of the children out, and I got quite emotional about it, actually. But, yeah, and then, of course, for him to obviously, the tour ended like that, and for the fight that he's got now, it's truly amazing. I mean, you know, Rob Burrows, another guy who's flawless as an individual, who's struggling with the same condition as is Stephen Darby, the Bradford City footballer. I went for breakfast with them all, actually. And I remember watching the programme on BBC One that Sally had done. She did an amazing thing, 12 months on. And Doddy had a fall about 6 weeks earlier, and he'd knocked himself out, knocked a tooth out, hurt his ribs. And was guided by Gary Armstrong, his good friend, was guiding him to his chair, aiding him, because he'd lost his confidence a little bit with the walking. And Rob wheeled in a wheelchair with his wife, and Stephen Darby walked in. And I remember watching the interview, and Stephen struggled with getting his answers out. He got quite emotional towards the back end of his answers. And I'm sure he must have been thinking 12 months ago, we all walked into this room, and here we are. This is where I'm going. It's crazy. It's not, but they're doing an amazing job, and he's still so upbeat. He's Doddy. He's still so. And that, do you know something? I gave him a little bit of an hard time, actually, Bruce. I said to him he was doing too much. He was creating a legacy for MND, and it should be with his family. And he was doing a lot of travelling all over the world and a lot of speaking. We were in Wolverhampton together. And he said, Bentos, while I can, I'm going to. While I can drive, while I can talk, while I can walk, I'm going to. And, you know, the lockdowns created an opportunity for him to spend some time with the family. You know, the three boys and Mary Doll, Kathy. Although I'm sure he's been hard work at times, because he'll not be easy to live, you know, but he's a great guy. It's not fair. Bruce, it's not fair. Life's not fair.
Nah, he's some man. He's an absolute role model. So let's rewind to before that tour. And one of my favourite stories is a story I've heard you tell a couple of times, because you didn't have that pathway to go straight into rugby. You had to have a real life before this nonsense kicked in. Yeah,
that's right. I went to Bentley Grammar School, which is a good school. I was punching to be there. But we played football. We played football on a Saturday morning, and I played football. I captained the school side. And then I used to play a little bit of rugby league on a Saturday afternoon at Dewsbury Moor. And then on Sunday morning, I played at Clackheaton, which is where I'm from, where I started, where it all began, and incidentally where I finished. So I tell people I started at Clackheaton, then finished at Clackheaton, and there's a little bit in between. I went on the pathway. It was big. I played with Ockley, and Ockley invited me to play. I got into the Yorkshire County side. We played in the county championship, and then the divisional championship was big. It was big. It was the springboard for international selection. But I was up against a guy. I was playing in centre in those. I was up against a guy called Will Carlin, actually, who I didn't particularly get on well with. Actually, he's not really my type, and we've not exactly got the same background. But he was obviously being groomed to be the England captain, and went on to do a great job with that. But that assured everybody, all the players, that the divisional champ, the North of England, Jeff Cook, who was the manager, would pick the team on form. It was all about performance. And I smashed Will at Morley, smashed him. And ended up the following day when they announced the North of England side, Simon Langford, fullback, Michael Harrison, right wing. And then the Stents, as he stops, this has been a really hard decision. He said, it's obviously going to be disappointing for a certain player, but I'm going to name Will Carlin and Kevin Sims. And of course, I've been left out. Well, I walked out onto the field and held a tackle shield and then said, look, I've got to go to work. And I was a police officer. I joined the police in 87. There was 60. There was a bit of a push for the intake, and there was 60 from West Yorkshire. 44 went to Bruges, 4 to Durham, and 12 of us, would you believe, had to go down to Cwmbran in South Wales. Which, incidentally, there was a World Cup happening in New Zealand, and England, we got up at 6 a.m. to watch the game, and Robert Jones scored a try to knock England out, and we ended up fighting in lumps, all these coppers down there. They were giving us a load of crap. Anyway, I ended up signing rugby league. I'd been approached, Bruce, for 2 or 3 years by different scouts, and I got a phone call from Roger Millward at Hull Kingston Rovers, who asked to meet me. They just signed Di Bishop, the scrum half, for the Welsh boy. They were after what they felt was a rugby union centre, because we know signing on fees or transfer fees between clubs with the rugby union boys. And I went to meet them, and they made me an offer, and I said, thank you very much. And they put it in the press, which Leeds, Alan Agar rang me and asked to meet me. And I had a short injury with the shoulder, and I ended up playing for West Yorkshire Police against South Yorkshire Police, which incidentally is up there with playing against South Africa, cop against cop. It's brutal, crazy, honestly. And they came to watch me and basically said they wanted to sign me, and I agreed to sign. And I wanted to go across the Sale to tell Fran and my teammates and Smithy face to face, and I did that. Met Maurice Lindsay actually on the way across at Birch Services, who was involved at Wigan, and he just said, whatever Leeds have offered you, we'll better it. And I said, do you know what? I'll give them my word. I want to sign for Leeds. I supported Leeds as a boy, so I ended up signing for Leeds. I had 4 years there, won nothing. Wigan won everything. But I had a great time. I then went to Halifax then, of course. Yeah, I enjoyed the rugby league, Bruce. I really did enjoy the rugby league. It was very physical. Rugby league was very confrontational, although there were challenges. I signed for Leeds. Everybody hated Leeds. They all thought they were a rich club. And I was from rugby union, so they all thought I was soft. That only happened once. It never happened the second time. And then, of course, I was a serving police officer. So you can imagine some of the sick. Hit the pig, you know. It was great. But it was great. Honestly, it was good. It was different. Rugby league was very different to rugby union. Very different, Bruce.
And do you get motivation from people saying you're soft or you're not good enough or you're from Yorkshire, or was that something that was a driver for you?
Massive. A little bit of an inverted chip on the shoulder, really, sometimes, but I've never been soft. I'm not soft. They just assume that coming from rugby union, playing on the wing. But yeah, you know, in life, we have to deal with adversity from time to time and disappointments. And I haven't, in my private life, had much adversity. But on the sports field, yeah, you have to take a good look at yourself sometimes. And it's all about performance and preparation. And it's about game time. And for me, game time's always been an opportunity to express yourself. You know, I've had lots of rugby coaches, but I haven't had many good man managers. I've got 2 that stand out that are astounding and very different in different ways. One, I played under him on 3 occasions. He signed me at Leeds. I went to Halifax. He came to Halifax. Then he signed me at Huddersfield for the last year of my contract, which was a bit of a mistake, really, which we'll probably discuss later about coming to the end of things. But it's Malcolm Reilly from Cass, who went out to play for Manly. He was an amazing coach. And then the other one, of course, was Geach, who just inspired you, just encouraged you to go out and play. Don't ever come back in the change rooms and think, if only. And I loved that. I loved his man management style, and you know, I loved his method. And they were very different, but they were very important to me. You've got to have belief, you know, and you've got to recognise that your coaches believe in you as well. And it's same as life, isn't it? It's like parenting and bringing up children. You've got to be that role model, that figurehead as a father, and you know, to your friends, and whether you in the workplace, you know, One of the biggest challenges about managing people, Bruce, occasionally you have to tell people things they don't want to hear, and it's how you do that, how you deliver that, and the outcome that you offer them as well. So they've been very, very important people to me.
You're an honest man, and I can imagine that while you could tell somebody something they maybe don't want to hear, it would probably hurt you a little bit because you want to make people happy.
Yeah.
But coming from a position of honesty, you would deliver that. Has there been points where, when you've done it, you've had to go away and have a moment to yourself because of the news that you've delivered?
The news I've delivered or received?
Oh, either. But you're talking about management. You've spoken about two pretty big hitters there, who, Geach didn't select you, and then he did. So, but your respect for him would help people respect you. So, when you delivered something maybe I didn't want to hear, you see that it hurts, but it's delivered from a place of honesty. Did you have to go and just steel yourself a little bit, or gather yourself before you went on to the next thing?
Yeah, there was an occasion. There's a standout occasion for me on the tour, actually, and that's evident. We played 13 games, Bruce. There were 35 players vying to play in those games. If you play on a Saturday, every Saturday, you play in the tests. And ultimately, it's all about playing in the tests. Yes, the build-up, we were 8 games prior to the first test, which created a bit of problem on this last tour. They didn't have enough games, really, I don't think, in the build-up to the test series. And as we saw, South Africa hadn't played for 2 years, but got better as the series progressed. I got into the Saturday. So initially, I was picked for the first game, Eastern Province. And I stubbed my toe in training. I couldn't believe it. Stubbed my toe, and I pull out the game. And then we had a midweek game against Border, and I was still struggling with the toe. And James Robson, the doctor, the Scot, said to me, Bentos, I just need to let you know, if you don't play, we were talking about it on the day of the game, if you don't play this evening, you'll be going home. You'll be on the plane home. So I had a cortisone injection in my toe, and I managed to get through the game, and I got man of the match and all that rubbish. And then ended up playing on the Saturday against James Small, Western Province, which was a big game, and a game that was talked a hell of a lot about in terms of the confrontation that was to be had between myself and James. And then there was a midweek game on Pamalanga when Doddy got injured. And then, of course, there was the Saturday game, which I was picked for. So I'm rolling now. I'm in the Saturday side. 60 minutes into the game, as a result of having had a shocker, just a rubbish game, I was off. Scott Gibbs came on. Alan Tate moved on to the wing. Gibbs in the centre with Scott. And I didn't need anybody to tell me. And the honesty which he spoke about, I knew that I'd be playing the following Wednesday. I knew I would be playing because of the result of my performance. It wasn't good. It was substandard. And do you know what, Bruce? Nobody had to say anything to me. I had to have a good look at myself. I probably went off tour for a couple of days, actually. And I stopped being the one with the camera and the jovial one and all this, that and the other. And I just recognised and I had to have a look at myself about why I was there. I wasn't there to make everybody laugh and be the fun guy and all this rubbish. I was there to play rugby. And I was there to play rugby and try and play in the tests. And as a result, we played against Gauteng Lions at Ellis Park. We ended up winning the game, which was quite a tough game because we'd lost against the Blue Bulls. We were then going to Natal on the Saturday, and then we were into the emergency, and then the first test. So we got the show back on the road, actually. We ended up winning the game, and I ended up... we got a standing ovation as we came off the field for all the players who hadn't played. And I remember shouting, it was back on tour. So that was my show back on the road.
Yeah, that confrontation with James Small.
Yeah.
The media love that stuff. But did that fuel you?
Yeah, brilliant. Loved it. Really look forward to it. There's a lot of chat about James Small in the build-up to the game. With the forwards, with Lawrence Delali or Tim Robb and myself, how we would defend him. Because he was billed as a character who wanted to make it the James Small show. Even within the West. And he was a great player. But a bit mixed up. A little bit of a troubled causer, really. The ultimate with the game, he ended up he ended up going around me on the short side of a scrum, Bruce. And nothing had happened in the first half. We're not really coming into contact with each other. But early on in the second half, from the base of the scrum, the halfway line, 20 metres infield, he demanded me to see the ball from his scrum half. He's on the right wing, I'm on the left, which I normally played on the right, but was picked on the left to him. Then, due to an amazing piece of wing play on his behalf, and a rather shabby piece of defensive play on my behalf again, he went round me. As I frantically got back to try and get hold of him, he kicked the ball on, it ran on, and it stopped on the try line. I think it was either Jerry Guscott or Neil Jenkins got back and touched the ball down, resulting in a 22-metre dropout for us. As I very embarrassingly made my way back, he came up to me, circling his finger like this, and he'd gone round me. He then went and stood about 30 metres away in anticipation of receiving this ball, points to me, points to the crowd, pointed back to me, and began to very, well, gesticulate again, very rudely. I dare show you really, but at this moment, most of this crowd began to chant words to the effect of, James Smalls, I'm going to kick your ass, Bentley. And I admit, Bruce, I did what we've all done at some point, look for a shovel, to dig a hole, to climb in and hide. Yeah, I thought if I do it, I'm on the next plane home. I've got to get out, I'm going to fight. Unbelievably. 5 minutes later, base of exactly the same scrum, he had the audacity to demand the ball and go for the same manoeuvre. On this across, I got across a little bit sharper. I took him high, like I like to. He ended up trying to slam the ball into my face. I ducked. It went out of play. We stepped out of the field over the sideline, and I just looked up, and I felt I was out of sight of that camera down the touchline, and our heads just bumped together. And I told him in no, we had a bit of a scuffle, Bruce, and I told him in no uncertain terms that he was going to not continue to have his own way. Again, about 5 or 6 minutes later, the ball goes up off Rob Howie's boot, comes down, he catches it, I tackle him. I'm on top of him, Bruce. He can't go anywhere. Fortunately for me, there's 8 big forwards jump on the top of those two, so nobody's got a clue what's going on. And it kicked off like World War III, honestly. And he can't go anywhere, and he's getting plenty. And the forwards start to pretend to do the usual, splitting it up, but sliding the punching. Basically, to cut a long story short, I know I've rattled on. We won the game. I'd scored a couple of tries. I went to him to shake his hand after the game, live on television, in front of everybody. He offered me his hand, took it away, and then walked straight past me. And I actually went after him to make him shake my hand. And Tim Rodber got hold of my collar and said, Bentos, there'll be another day. But, you know, it's, of course, then he got slaughtered for not shaking my hand and then accused me on the Tuesday morning of eye gouging. Which I didn't. I was in his face. I was all over him, I'll be honest, but I didn't gouge him. And I took it to Fran. It was front page of every national newspaper. And I took it to Fran and showed him. And Fran just looked at it and said, you didn't gouge him, did you? I said, no, I didn't. But I was in his face. He said, well, he's a guy who gets his own way. Didn't get his, came off second best, so. And then just quashed it and it disappeared. I saw him actually after the first test. I didn't play. I was on the bench and they were in a bit of a down mood. They'd obviously lost the game at Newlands. And we shook hands and he apologised actually about how it had all get blown apart. So he's sadly no longer with us, is he?
No, and I did wonder if you'd managed to get closure on that with him. So you've got us there.
Yeah, I bumped into him in 2009 as well in a bar in I can't remember where we were. We could have been anywhere. He was in a bar and I'd said, look, they'd interviewed me. So what if you bumped into James Small? I said, well, I'd love to have a pint with him. I'd love to have a chat with him. And I said, but if he wants to fight, I'm not bothered. I'll have a fight. I'm not going to, you know. And we got brought together and we shook hands, we had a chat. And it was awkward. It was awkward, if I'm honest. He wasn't easy to get on with. But he's a great player. And then he disappeared. And, you know, and then, of course, sadly, I was informed about the circumstance of his death, which is a real shame, really, for anybody.
Yeah, no, it was one of the huge talking points of the tour. So, John Bentley, always the policeman? Was that always a demeanour or a manner? Did that suit you to be a policeman? Your personality and your skills?
Massive. Yeah, I'd look forward to joining the police. At 16, 17, I tried to get into the cadets, and I was too small. I didn't grow until I was 17, mate. I ended up 6 foot, which was a great thing. I would not recommend for anybody to go into the police force at such a young age. You've got to get out there and you've got to work with people. You've got to work with real people and understand people. And the important thing about it was a police force, Bruce. I don't think it can be called a police force anymore. It's a police service now, and the respect for the police is diminished. I loved it. It worked for me. I joined the police force June '87, working in Leeds, Hyde Park, Burley, which is a tough area. And then I signed for Leeds, which worked for me, So it's funny when I used to bump into the groups of the young kids and what have you. Initially, they'd see the uniform, and there's a bit of dislike for certain, within certain quarters for the police force. But of course, beyond that, I was a rugby player as well, and they supported Leeds, so it was a bit of an in for me. But I've always enjoyed working with people. Policing's black and white, Bruce. It's written in law, it's policing. However, it's all about interpretation. It's about dealing with situations which suit and fit. I enjoyed that, and making those decisions about how you deal with certain situations. I love fighting as well, and the police and the rugby offered me an opportunity to fight, and I was good at it.
Can you imagine getting yourself in trouble in Leeds and being chased down by John Bentley?
But I've got to be honest. The first time I ever tried to catch somebody from the and I lost him, because his need to get away was far greater than mine to catch him, and he bolted across open roads. But I could run, and I was super fit, so I just used to track them. And you always know when you've caught somebody because you start to look over the shoulder. And of course, I'd be talking to them, goading them a little bit. And I remember chasing a lad on the riverbank and about 4 o'clock in the morning. And we'd gone for a long time. And I was fit. I could catch him and thrown all my kit off. And he ran. I ended up looking over, and he turned. There was police all over the place trying to find us where we were. And he just put his hands in there to right, give in. I said, no way in a million years we're having a fight now. You're not giving in. We had a scrap. A nice one.
got to make it worthwhile. And then you get into rugby league. Now, rugby league then was it probably wasn't quite as rough and tumble as it was in the 70s, but it was still a tough old shift. And the characters around were, some pretty hardy men who were trying to put bread and meat on the tables. What was that environment like?
I quickly recognised that we were playing for money. And it was important to some of the players. That very important. I signed a 5-year contract at Leeds. Sorry. We then on game day we were playing £300 for a win, £60 if we lost. Imagine playing against somebody like Featherstone. They'd perhaps be on £150 a win, £40 a loss. Now, to some of those players who were working 5.5 days down a pit or manual work, the difference between winning and losing, that money, basically, the washing machine's broken. We can buy a new washing machine this week, or we can get a full basket of shopping, a full trolley of shopping. If on the Sunday afternoon, if you're carrying the ball towards me, if I break your jaw, we're going to win this game. I am going to break your jaw. I quickly recognised that. And the difference with the rugby league and the rugby union, the tackle area was from there to there. That was the tackle area. You carried the ball. But I loved it. I really did enjoy it. And we had some great days with it. And had some great friends as well. But there was a difference between the rugby league and the rugby union.
What did your week look like then as a rugby league player?
Yeah, well, in those days, go to Super League. It went full time in '96, but we used to train just like a rugby union club would train. We would train on a Tuesday evening, a Thursday evening, either a Friday evening or a Saturday morning, depending on what suited, and play on a Sunday afternoon. Everybody played on Sunday, so I had to combine my duties as a police officer with being a professional rugby league player, and actually that created a little bit of animosity. I mean, I think amongst some of the police officers, because you weren't allowed to have a second source of income. You weren't allowed to run a corner shop or have another job. You were just a police officer. Yeah, I was getting paid to play professional rugby league, and amongst some, I just detected that there was a little bit of animosity, not to my face, but That's why, Bruce, when we went and knocked on a door and we to go in and there was going to be some trouble inside, I was always first in the door. Nobody could ever say I shirked or anything, but I did get an allowance with doing my own shifts and being flexible with that. And it worked. And it was deemed to be good publicity for the police force, playing professional rugby league, you know, as long as you're not getting sent off every 2 minutes.
And one of the story, and I want you to tell it, but I retell this, and I promise I give you credit for it all the time, because although I'm certainly not in the police force, but I'm a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a parent, and I heard you tell this story about your advice to some cadets or some new starts, and I've taken it on myself, and I've also passed it on. So please, from the horse's mouth. Yeah,
it's applicable to life. It's not just about being there, but it was appropriate for me as a police officer to share it with another young police officer who I'd be showing around my area, which was a tough area. And I basically just stopped this young police officer one day and just said, look, do you see that group over there? A group of young lads stood across the street and whatever, looking at us and, you know, up to mischief, no doubt. But I said, one day you'll be walking down this street and something will happen over there. And everybody on this street will expect you to go across there and deal with that situation. Irrespective of what you think has just taken place, go across and attempt to offer them the benefit of the doubt. Allow them to explain themselves. Go and be nice. Go and be nice to them. Do you know why? You can always get nasty. And you have a lot of people who can come and help you. And actually, if you get nasty straight away, you can't go to nice, because we get it wrong sometimes. And I think that's so important about life. So my aim, when I meet people, I attempt to see the best in them before I look for the worst. And actually, give everybody a chance, because we all make mistakes, and I've made plenty of mistakes, Bruce, I can assure you. But yeah, I think it's an integral thing. And teaching's very applicable, you know, very applicable as a teacher when you're working with young people. And, you know, I'm envious of you being a teacher, and perhaps I've had the opportunity to do this in my role in certain ways, but a teacher's got a wonderful opportunity to make a difference to a young person's life. Wow, that's so powerful. And it can go either way, of course. You know, we can all remember our good teachers, can't we? We can remember a couple of bad ones as well. But yeah, you've got a great opportunity, Bruce.
I love it, and as I say, I tell that story, and people will go, "Oh, you're name dropping," but I genuinely love it. Start nice, and you can always get nasty, or you can get angry, but you can't go the other way because you've already cast your chips, haven't you?
I always remember coming home from work, and then I did a bit of split time, and I got to go to training then afterwards. And this is after I finished playing professionally. My wife's 3,000 feet with the kids. So the kids have a boy and two girls, like I've already said. They play the mum up a little bit different to the dads generally, don't they? The dad's generally the big bad wolf. And she was 3,000 feet, fed up of them, and she asked me to go and remonstrate. I all stood, and I ended up getting quite animated actually, and a bit of spit flew out of my mouth and landed on my son's nose. And the two girls looked down the line, and the shoulders started going. Chuck, my boy just stared at me, and I lost it. I didn't do anything, but I shouted. I might have swore actually, which was quite embarrassing. And I cleared off down to Clackheaton, and it was supposed to be a really easy session. We were having a bit of touch. I made it full contact, and I smashed it at training. And I remember doing so anyway. I had a glass of orange. I remember driving home, by which time I calmed down, Bruce. And I remember going into the house, and my boy was sat there, and I said, "Where are your sisters?" I said, "They're upstairs in the bedroom. Can you please ask them to come down? I'd like to speak to you all." And they went to him, and I know the conversation was going, "Come on, he's back, dickhead. You know, here we go again." So they were coming, and they all stood ready, all staring at me. And I just, you know what? I meant to say what I said earlier, but how I said it was wrong, and I'm sorry for that. And they just came and put their arms around me and patted me on my back. "Dad, we know you're in no bed, but you're out in no bed." So it was like, nice. And we do get it wrong sometimes, Bruce, don't we? And I always think it's a great quality to be able to say sorry. Although I have at times said to looked and thought, "Stop saying sorry, change what you're doing." My wife always said, "You think you can say anything just because you can say sorry afterwards? Well, it's not good enough. Change what you're doing. Stop saying sorry." All right, fair enough.
Amen. Amen. You sound like me speaking to the boys. Yeah. Show you're sorry. Don't say you're sorry. Yeah. So then you police rugby league, and then you get this chance to go and join Newcastle, which just sounds it's not really going to happen again because of the era that you were in and the situation that was coming. But some of those players, I mean, it was almost like a barbarians team, but you were able to train every week and play every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we just slipped and missed out with rugby league went to Super League. It went to the summer, didn't it? It changed. They had an inaugural season in '95. They had a Rugby League World Cup, which was great. Really enjoyed that. It was a proper one. And then we went to Super League. And initially, it was only going to be a 4.5-month season, initially. But they extended that. And I bumped into Rob Andrew at Newcastle, at Huddersfield. He was watching a game, commentating on a game, and he asked me if I'd fancied playing rugby union, and I said yes. And we got embroiled in a contract, negotiation then between the three parties, myself and Newcastle, which was quite, and Halifax. There's a guy called Nigel Wood who became the head of the rugby league. It became quite challenging to get this contract sorted, but ultimately, without going into the final, I did. And initially, Bruce, Rob Andrew with a solicitor was driving down to Bradford to meet me to sign a contract which would see me play for Newcastle for 8 months of the year. But the important thing, I was going to live in Newcastle. So I was going to travel home on a Sunday after the game. All the games were south of where we were, so I used to meet the bus at Ferrybridge. But no, sorry, let me just finish that bit. So initially I was going to live in Newcastle and leave the family at home. But the day that we're talking about was the 4th of September in 1996. And that was the day my third child was born. And she had a home birth to my wife, Sandy. And Millie was born. And it was Faye's first day at school. And I'd walked the two across the school. And on my way back, I'd decided I couldn't leave them. I couldn't go to Newcastle. And I got back and my wife was crying, not believing how she could possibly manage with me living in Newcastle 5 days a week. And I rang Rob, who was halfway down. I said, Rob, I've got to pull out this day. I can't leave my family. He said, well, we're halfway down. We'll come and see you anyway. And he was amazing. He agreed that I was able to travel up on a Tuesday, there and back, up on a Thursday, there and back. All the away games, I'd meet them at Ferrybridge. And occasionally for the home games, I'd take the family up and we'd stay up there at the Gosforth Park. He was amazing. And it was a great team. Yeah, you're right. I mean, that back line was Gary Armstrong, Rob Andrew, who was probably the weak link, actually. Alan Tate and Twigger Marler in the centres, myself and on the wings, and Tim Stimson at fullback. It was an amazing team. And the forwards were just unbelievable, with Doddy in there and Gareth Arch, Pat Lamb, Nick Popwell. It was just, yeah, you're right. It was like a barbarian side, an invitation side. And
going from league to union, just one was Monday, the next was Tuesday, and Bentos takes any stride?
Do you know what, Bruce? When I made my initial switch from rugby union to rugby league, I was extremely fit, but I realised I needed to be. It was a step up with the rugby league boys. Now, whilst rugby league was extremely fast and dynamic, very confrontational, when you get tackled at rugby league, the game momentarily stops, and then it restarts very quickly with the play of the ball. When I came back to rugby union in September '96, and my debut was against Blackheath up at Kingston Park, I found that I forgot that you get the ball. My strength was always broken field running. I wouldn't say I'd beat the man. I didn't beat the man. But you'd suddenly find yourself beating somebody, coming towards, and then, would you believe, isolating yourself and getting to a point where you had to succumb to the tackle, go to the, just let go of the ball. They'd pick it up and kick it back 40 metres from where I've come. And I had to occasionally, you've got to come out the contact and you've got to seek your support to maintain possession. And that was the challenge. But yeah, did enjoy it. And we had a great He had a great team.
And from what I can gather from speaking to Doddy and speaking to Gary Armstrong and listening to others off the field, you became pretty close and enjoyed each other's company.
Yep. What did they tell you?
Well, it's a long bus trip back to Newcastle for some of those southern grounds.
They used to like me getting on the bus. I used to bring the entertainment. No, it was great. I mean, yeah, it was a long. It was part of our life, wasn't it? You know, it's very enjoyable and great friends, great friendships established, just like with the Lions, you know, and everything I've been involved in actually established some great friendship. Everything, whether it be as a police officer, whether it be playing at Clackheaton, whether it be walking around the park with my dog, you know, I love people. It's great to meet people.
One of my favourite people you've mentioned, Ian McGeechan, but
Yeah.
I had his sidekick on here, and I've known Jim for a long, long time. What was your relationship like with Jim Telfer?
It was a fortunate one because I didn't work with him. He worked with the forwards. But I remember, do you know what, crazily, I remember the five of us, the new boys stood at Kingston Park. We'd been picked and it hadn't been announced, but I remember Doddy saying, you wouldn't want to get picked for the Lions. What? Telfer at the helm. And of course, I remember us getting beasted in the scrum early doors, in particular against Western Province. Did a scrum session with the forwards. God, they were dying. They were and I remember laughing to myself. That's why. But I loved Jim. I loved him. And do you know what? I didn't spend much time with him in terms of his coaching prowess, which is, I mean, he was amazing for that job. God, he told them to put the differences to one side and their egos. He was the boss. He was the alpha male. And there was a particular session where he laid down the law and he killed them. And they did adhere to everything he said. But I used to sit with him on his own from time to time. We used to have a coffee or a glass of orange, and we used to talk about life and about family. And what a lovely man. What a hard man, but what a lovely man. I loved him to bits. And, you know, probably the biggest speech I've ever heard was on the 28th of June when we were about to play the second test, and Geach spoke about the challenge, and he knew what it was like because he'd been there in '74. But in particular, he didn't really speak much about the rugby. If we were obviously 1-0 up, but he spoke about the people we were sat amongst and the family and the people who would allowed it to be where we was for that day. And he said, you'd be stood on the field today and they knew this. It might be 10, 15, 30 years' time, you know, before you see each other. And having been on the field alongside each other where you can't speak, and it'll just be a look. You won't need to say anything. Oh, it's so true. And I tell you a funny account. I always remember going into Hong Kong, which I used to go all the time to Hong Kong. I remember bumping into Martin Johnson, who was an amazing leader. Very quiet man, actually, initially. Didn't say much. He was a young captain, but he was a big guy, a great presence. And they wanted a big guy to stand in front of Teichmann, who again was big himself. And John had gone on a week's trip to Hong Kong to do some speaking, but he'd taken 5 of his pals from his little local club who played rugby, but not to any high level. And they'd hired a facility on Wang Chai. These lads, there are a couple of them experiencing everything that's good, possibly bad, about Wang Chai. And I remember seeing John, and we'd gone to do an event on the Tuesday evening with a bunch of solicitors and what have you. And all his mates were really giddy about them being in Hong Kong, what have you. I'd just come there from Manila. So I'd been in Manila for the week prior. So I was a bit dusty, would you say. And I remember seeing John on. We walked, and he has a little bit of a swagger, and he swaggered across and put his hand out and bent across with a like shy half smile on his face. And I knocked his hand out of the way and craned his head down and gave him a big kiss on his cheek and a cuddle. I swear, he looked as though I'd fisted him. He felt so uncomfortable with that. Honestly, it was unbelievable. But all his mates laughed. But I do that. And you know the business with Doddy, don't you? I always tell him I love him. He never tells me. He sends me texts, but he'll never tell me in front of people. I'm quite open with it. Bruce. I've always been like that. I'm comfortable with displaying it. And for me.
Well, I feel very honoured because I've got pictures. I've got evidence of you giving me a kiss, so I'm well aware of that, and I've got evidence to prove it. Bentos, I absolutely love talking to you, and you've been all over. Now, one of the things I'm learning the more I do this and speak to people have only got the capacity to remember maybe 4, 5, 6 results in their life.
Yeah.
Yet we put so much stock in winning.
Yeah.
But the things we remember are feelings and people and moments. Who or what or when is the one that maybe you were just in that utopian state of this? There's nowhere else in the world I would rather be right now.
Probably the 28th of June 1997, although I contradict myself because I wanted to be in so many places, didn't I? But it was that one moment. It would just be nice if I could have had some of those people around me to share that experience. But it was that achievement of winning that second test, having been given no chance. We were given no chance, seriously. And we were second best for a good 60 minutes of that game. But that one moment when you thought, wow, you can't get better than this. It can't possibly get better. And
is that then the evidence of what Geach said? It's creating those memories that then in 30 years' time, you'll just remember.
You know, I think the significant thing about 97 is it was the advent of professionalism. You know, I was paid. I got some money. Lions. You'd chew through your arm, wouldn't you? God, I couldn't believe it. But they were actually talking about whether or not there was a place for the Lions in the professional era. Well, if you then look at 2001, that was a pretty ordinary tour. Graham Henry lost the changing rooms a little bit. It became a bit of a drag. 2005, wow. Clive nearly destroyed the concept of what the Lions is all about. Tried to treat them as the England team, and it doesn't work with the Lions. It's a special brand. It's a special way to bring the people together. And then 2009, back on track in South Africa. 2013, a win for Gats in Australia. And then quite an extraordinary result in New Zealand in 2017. The Lions is massive. It's absolutely, it's one of the biggest brands in world sport now. And the amount of supporters that travel. Of course, that'll have been extremely challenging this time for the boys. It'll have been crucial that they got on a group of players. And I think they did. They appeared to do so, didn't they, Bruce, from what we saw. But there were no supporters there, and they were in a bubble all the time. And it's a shame for them that they didn't have the experience that we've had previously. So, but it's, you know, being on 2025, you know, it's back to Australia.
What did your league mates say to you about the Lions?
It's funny because I not much really, not much. It's a bit different. I don't even know if they'd have watched it actually. I don't even know if they'd have probably watched it. I'm not sure. But it was difficult actually because hard for me because I came back and it was the Rugby League and Super League had set up this ill-fated World Club Challenge. So Halifax were in a group with playing Canberra Raiders, Canterbury Bankstown and Brisbane Broncos. And I got off on the plane on the Tuesday and they wanted me to play on the Sunday against Canberra. And I just couldn't. But I played the following week against Brisbane Broncos and ended up popping a rib cartilage, genuinely, Bruce, which was probably one of the most frustrating injuries I've ever had because you can't show anybody anything. And it was 10 weeks before this mended. So I missed the start of the season at Newcastle as well with it. And I came under a little bit of pressure about playing. And I actually padded it up and thought, if I get smashed on this, I'm dead. But ended up getting through it all and what have you. But no, it was back on the horse really as soon as I got back with the Rugby League. And I can't really remember actually. I don't think there was too much said really, but I don't know.
It's the Lions is a funny thing because although Martin Johnson was a phenomenal Lion, the image in everyone's head is lifting the World Cup.
Yeah.
Johnny Wilkinson, unfortunately, the era he was in is the Lions experience wasn't maybe what it could have been for someone of that ability. So he's an Englishman. But there are certain people who are assigned Lions. If somebody mentions John Bentley, the first thing that pops into your head is British and Irish Lions. Absolutely no question.
Nice.
Is that a nice thing to have as your sort of calling card?
Amazing. Oh, lucky. Oh, lucky. So privileged, actually. I was just in the right place at the right time, with the right people picking what they felt was the right type of player as well, incidentally. And it's such a fun tour. But it was a successful. Do you know what, Bruce? 133 years they've been touring. Do you know how many times they've won the Test Series?
It's not many. I should know.
How many?
Half a dozen?
5.
5.
So 71, 74, 9, 97, 2013. I always say to Geach went on 7 Lions tours, I do quite a lot of work with Geach. Love him to bits. He went 2 as a player, 74, 77, 5 as a coach, 89, which was only the 3rd win of 5, 93, which was a poor tour, 97, which was a happy tour, 2005 when Clive got it wrong, and then 2009, show back in the Museum. I always say to Geach, ask him 2 questions. Firstly, in 74, when they shouted 99, what did you do? And he talks about, chat with Phil Bennett at the back, and the call is hit the first South Africa. It's Phil Bennett's story. He ended up picking on a 12-year-old ball boy who put up. And then I always say, of the 5 as a coach, which was your favourite, and was it because I was there? And he always says, and he's learned to say, Bentos, you're right, 97 was my favourite, despite you being there.
That's what a brilliant memory. What a brilliant guy to have as your sidekick. It's just so many happy memories for me, that 97 tour. Heroes, and I'm still in awe of the men that went on that, because it meant so much, and it was such almost a coming of age for the Lions, for pro rugby, for players, for me as a supporter. And now, although there's fly on the wall documentaries, they're not living with the Lions, are they?
No. It will never be replicated. The big thing as well is social media now as well, isn't it? And just finishing off where obviously when you spoke about, very nice about me being recognised as, actually I'd probably disagree with you. I would say people would mention my name and think Clack Eaton first. Which is just not long. We've had our most confusing day of the year, Father's Day. Really challenging, Clack. Do you know, we've lots of podcasts and Zoom calls and what have you. Now, I did something called I really enjoyed doing it. 11 episodes with Alistair Eakin, Bruce. And the amazing thing about listening to Martin Johnson and Lone Stilalio and Jerry Guscott and Will Greenwood, incidentally, who nearly died on that trip. They still, despite you saying, yeah, John, I'll lift the world up, they still talk about 97 being their happiest touring experience above every other thing. And I think that's quite amazing, really. But it's going back, it's going back to my wife. I've not much to select from her. I went 1 tour, score 1 try, got 1 speed. Get over yourself.
Yeah, but it's worth it. Bentos, I could talk forever, and I hope that with the world opening up, I'm going to get to see you again, and I'll get to share a microphone with you, because I've loved it the times we've done it before. But I always ask people to finish off, and I'm intrigued as to where this is going. So for John Bentley, happiness is
to the people, we're back with people, and my grandson. I've got a grandson, Bruce. He's called Jasper. He's only 3. And I tell you, it's amazing. It's an amazing love. There should be a way to bypass the parenting and go straight to grandparenting, you know. It's far more enjoyable. You make time, you look forward to it, you don't have to be the big bad wolf, and you can give them back. I love it. I've ordered another 8. Get cracking, another 8.
I can imagine coming to see you is an absolute barrel of laughs and something the wee man looks forward to.
We have fun, Bruce.
I've no doubt, and I think you'll continue to do that. John Bentley, an absolute honour always. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you soon. My
privilege, and well done, Bruce. Thank you. You're good.
Thanks, pal. Love you.
Take care, buddy.
See you soon.
See you, man.
Well, he's your favourite lion. He's my favourite lion. I'm pretty confident he's most people's favourite lion. John Bentley, so much in there, and he loves people, and he loves being happy. Strikes me that he was on the right podcast. I can't wait to see the guy again and maybe get another one of those smackers on the cheek. If you've enjoyed it, you can tune in on Apple, Acast and Spotify. You can watch on Facebook and YouTube. Leave us a review. Tell your friends Bentos was here. My name is Bruce Aitchison from the Happiness Is podcast, and my happiness is egg-shaped. I look forward to seeing you all very, very soon. Stay safe.